Ladies, my fellow mommies, we are always so busy, on the go, kids screaming in the back seat, sleeping babies. I have the ultimate hack for you.
Welcome to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast with Krista and Tracy, your go-to girls for health, fitness, and keeping it real in mom life.
If you can't seem to get in a good groove with your nutrition and exercise program, this is for you.
We've coached thousands of women using macros for over 8 years, and I'm well known around here for my 5-day meal prep videos.
What does a macro balanced meal look like?
Hit subscribe to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast and join us for a fun, meaningful journey toward a healthier, happier you.
You got this, Mom.
Hi. I am so excited about this episode of the podcast because we are interviewing longtime client Jenny Galliotto, and she's been with Stay Fit Mom for a while. And we're just so excited to have her on the show. So welcome, Jenny.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with, we want to hear your story. This is such a privilege because we were talking a little bit before we started recording. You said, I feel like I know who you are because Krista and I are constantly sharing our story, but this is such a cool opportunity for us to get to hear your story, Jenny. So just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Jenny. I live in Nashville with my husband, and we have a 7-year-old boy who keeps us super busy. I work for a building products company as director of sustainability and public policy, which also keeps me very busy and traveling a lot and a lot of fun stuff going on there. So a lot of work-life balance.
That's awesome because we'll get into those challenges, but it's just nice to hear that you're a regular person trying to figure this health and fitness journey out amongst all the other things that you've got going on in your life. So tell me about your weight loss journey. How did that start? Tell me about your story, maybe how you eventually stumbled upon Stay Fit Mom.
I've been naturally active my entire life. When we lived in Chicago, I was running all the time. I don't want to say it was easy to maintain your weight, but when you're super active, you can go out, you can eat and drink and do all those things when you're in your 20s. So I've always had a natural draw to health and fitness. And we moved to Nashville and COVID happened. And it was just like, and we just, kind of, fell into a lot of the same challenges that other people did during COVID. And so we had stumbled upon macros around that time. My first interaction was with the back to school challenge, but I still had approached it with the mentality of macros being a max. You're calorie counting and you can't go over that. But if you're under, that's good, which is so not what you're supposed to do with macros. I tried it, but I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't working with a coach. And then fast forward to December of that year, and my dad passed away from a heart attack. And so that was the wake-up call that my husband and I needed to get back to the healthy lifestyle that we knew that we needed to have, especially with our son being so young and wanting to make sure that we're around for a long time for him. That's when I started coaching, was January of 2021, 22.
Tell me how, if you don't mind sharing, how old was your dad when he passed away?
I think he was not quite 70.
So I share that in common with you, Jenny. I don't know if you knew that, but my dad also passed away, and it for sure lit a fire in me so I'm so sorry for your loss. That's hard.
And I'm sure you struggled with this. With parents, it's so hard to help them make that change. They have to want to be able to do that. And for so long, I struggled with trying to get my dad to eat healthier. And I couldn't change him, but I can change what I do.
Yep, I identify with so much of that. My dad passed away from seemingly preventable disease, health-related diseases like addiction, obesity. Those are all things that my dad battled. And so I felt that same pull on my heart. If I could just get him to change these small habits, but it's very hard. It's so hard when it comes to your parents. But you're right. We do have the opportunity to change ourselves.
And I think the only other thing I'll add there is I have his genes. I've had high blood pressure and been on high blood pressure medication since I was in my 30s. And I can't change that even with diet and exercise. The more I can do to prevent going down that same path, I think it's just what I can manage that's in my control.
And that's so important when we think about what we're genetically predisposed, more likely to have happen to us, to take that into account when you're doing everything that you can to prevent the same thing happening. Tell me about, you talked about how for macro counting, you weren't hitting your numbers within range. So what finally made you make the switch and do it differently?
When I started working with Coach Kirsten, she had me really focusing on meeting those targets and being within the ranges of ±5 for carbs and proteins, and then ±2 for fats. And so that was really when it started to click. And I was like, oh, okay, I can still have butter. I don't have to not put butter on my toast because fats are bad. It was all about balance. And I think that's one of the key things is nothing is off the table. Halloween candy around this time, or all of the different parties we go to, nothing is off the table. It's all about making sure you're eating those in the right proportions. So I think that's when it started to click, is when I was working with Coach Kirsten and we started doing a reverse. So I had never in my life been on I'll use air quotes here, diet where eating more resulted in losing weight, which was it was mind blowing. And I think that's when it really started to click, is, oh, this works. And this is easy. And it's.
Yeah, I think that too, that concept, because you were talking about before how you were just trying to stay under your macro goals versus adding foods so that you would hit your macro goals. As long as I'm under 60 grams of fat, but really we want you to be at like 58 grams of fat. And so that might mean adding more to your meals, which is, such a bizarre concept when you're quote unquote dieting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what are some of your joys, foods that you've added in, foods that are your pleasure that you love to have?
Yeah, we definitely have a sweet tooth, and we try and work in an ice cream bar or a fun size candy bar with all the Halloween candy we have left over. Just something at the end of the night that just is sweet and really wraps everything up. And it makes it feel like you're not holding back and that you can't have those sweet treats.
For me, it makes the tracking all worth it, because if you're not tracking, at least I do, I have to put all that on the no list because I don't have that self-control. But if I have somebody holding my hand, a boundary that you can have it up until this point, then the pressure's off. So I love that. I share that with you for sure. So when you first started macro counting, was it intimidating to you from the start? Or do you feel like, just like your fitness and athletic background, had you jump in with 2 feet?
Yeah, I think once I started working with the coach, that made all the difference, because the support that you get from your coach and being able to answer those questions. I think the most intimidating thing when I first started was trying to be perfect and make sure I measured everything as accurately as I could. And I think when I realized it was consistency over perfection, and that's something that I still work on in different aspects, but in terms of tracking, you can weigh out something after it's cooked and just apply the 75% rule. And you can do an estimate when you're going out to eat and say, okay, you know what, that's close enough. It may not be completely accurate, but it puts me in the ballpark. And just continuing those habits to do it long term, that's what makes it easy to continue on that path. Because if you're nitpicking every little thing, you're going to overwork yourself.
Right. It's going to be too heavy of a burden to carry. But you, because you've figured out how to manage this and let it ebb and flow in your life, it's been something that you've been able to do for a long time. So that's exactly how I feel about it too. It gives you these strict boundaries, but you can also let off the gas a little bit, or you just learn how to better estimate from that.
And I think that because I travel a lot for work, and there's a lot of times where, we're at events and they're catering. So it's difficult to be like, oh, okay, I was at Chipotle and it was this exact thing that I ordered. But you can still say, okay, I had a turkey sandwich, and you can either break down the components if you want, or just do your best estimate from something that's in MyFitnessPal. And then you move on and you don't rest about it. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned throughout my couple of years here of macro counting.
That's such great strategy, because we do have women that will email in or say, I travel a lot for work. And sometimes I feel like, oh, this is going to be really hard for you. But if you implement those strategies, I know with going out to eat, sometimes I'll do that too. I'll log something that I think would be similar from another place. Like you mentioned Chipotle. I would say, okay, this is a similar food and at a restaurant. Obviously, it's not going to be perfectly accurate, but it's much better than not doing anything at all. And it helps you just move right along.
The other tip I would say for other women that travel is packing those high protein snacks. Whenever I'm traveling for work, I'll always pack protein bars or jerky or those tuna packets, just because I know lean protein is the hardest to get. You can always get fats and carbs in some combination, but getting to that lean protein, which is the most important. So then you can just throw one of those in there, have it as a supplement to everything that you're eating with everybody else.
Do you use MyFitnessPal to track, Jenny?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I track on that nutrition screen, it will show a line that shows how close you are to your protein goal. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it'll show like all these lines. And that is how I gauge my day. Is my protein line far enough over towards the goal compared to my carbs and fats? I know that I'm in trouble if my protein line is very small and my carbs and fat line is running out. Then I'm like, oh, that's going to be egg whites for dinner or something horrible, right?
Yep, you're going to be eating a can of chicken for dinner, which I'm going to say I've had nights where that's what we have is a can of chicken and Greek yogurt to balance everything out.
But you learn. You're like, okay, I'm not doing that again. I've got to keep that protein line ahead of my carbs and fats line so that doesn't happen. But thank you for sharing those tips. That's awesome. So one thing that our listeners have got to know about you, Jenny, is that you are the example photo in all of our weekly check-ins that are being sent out every single week. You see this is how you need to take your progress picture example, and it's Jenny. So that's going to be fun that they're going to be like, I know her story now. So you've had an amazing transformation. It's been so exciting to watch. Tell us about that. Tell us about some results that you've had.
Yeah. And so I think from the time I started, I think I lost 25 pounds. And that's about when that transformation picture was taken. But that wasn't sustainable for me. And I think that's what I had worked on with my coaches. Okay, how do I find the right balance for what maintenance looks like for me? And you can't be in a cut all the time. You can't be always in a deficit. And so just having that right balance of having the maintenance calories, and then if you have a special event coming up, doing a cut right before it to feel your best, and then come right back up to maintenance.
Oh, it is so refreshing to hear another woman just say, I realized that wasn't a weight that I could maintain forever and be okay with it. Because I feel like that's half the battle, is just thinking that we constantly have to be smaller and we're not going to be satisfied until we're a certain number on the scale. And I think the beauty of macro counting is that it shows you really where your body is most comfortable when it's optimally fueled, and you're not willing to sacrifice more than that for your overall well-being and life and happiness and joy. And I don't know, I just think that's so refreshing, Jenny, to hear you say that.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep it real. It was a struggle because when I came back up, I was like, oh, I'm a failure. I lost all this weight and then I regained some of it. But I needed to do that to understand where I needed to be. And I'm at a comfortable size of where I am. Like, I feel confident. And so I'm happy with where I'm at.
That's so cool. And yet you're still checking in with a coach every single week. Tell me about the value you see there. If you're comfortable with where you are, how do you still prioritize macro tracking and checking in with a coach, or why do you?
Accountability, 100%. I did leave after I had hit my numbers and I was like, okay, I'm good. I know what to do now. I don't need a coach. But having that person to check in with every week, even if it's just to say, hey, it's been a really busy week. I've done my best. Here's my numbers. Here's my plan for next week to get back on track. Having that person in your corner that's like cheering you on and motivating you, it is just the world of difference. And, you know, like I said, my husband and I do this together, and it's great having that support system, but having that coach to check into just keeps us both accountable, because he also works with Dad Bod.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So this perfectly leads into that. Tell us about that experience. What's it like doing this with your husband?
I don't know that I could do it without him being on board. It's great being a team, and we meal prep together. We'll macro Tetris together. He'll hand me his phone and be like, okay, figure out what I need to eat for the rest of the day. And it's fun to have that built-in partner that you're constantly working on. Because I feel like if I had a spouse that wasn't doing it, and I see a lot of this on the posts sometimes, people are like, oh, my husband isn't doing this. And so I feel like I have to make something else for him to eat, and then something for me, and then something for the kids. And I feel for them, because I think that would definitely be harder to stay focused and stay on track if you didn't have someone doing this with you.
I totally agree. I interviewed Coach Marisha a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about how valuable it is to have somebody in the weeds with you, because it's one thing if they're like, yeah, you're doing great, good job. But it's another thing if they know what kind of sacrifice it takes, and the amount of time where you two could be like, let's just go out to eat tonight, or let's not meal prep. There's just so many other opportunities, so many other fun things that you two could be doing. And to think you're connecting over this, which you both see as very valuable, it does just make it easier to have somebody in the weeds with you that, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. And meal prep is key for our success. We'll make a big batch of rice in the Instapot. We'll make some chicken or some other kind of protein. And then we usually make a big meal that we can divide into portions for lunch. And then something for breakfast, like either a wrap or overnight oats, something that's grab and go as we're rushing out the door with trying to get the kiddo to the bus or trying to get to work.
So you've talked about a few of these, but do you have any other big challenges that you faced during your journey? You talked a little bit about wrestling with your maintenance weight, but anything else come to mind?
I think the other thing that I've been working most on with Coach Stacy is just coming back to that consistency over perfection, and trying to get in that mindset that consistency is not hitting every single day. That's perfection. And going on vacation, it's okay to let loose and enjoy vacation, still try and get your protein in, get your water in, and do those habits that you've built, but don't stress about tracking, don't stress about the extra meals that you're eating out, just enjoy that moment. So I think that's been a big one, and separating that from, it's not, I guess when I first started, I was like, that's the all or nothing mentality. I'm either doing it or I'm not, but it's comes back to that balance and being able to make it work in your lifestyle.
So you mentioned you're working with Coach Stacy, and I put out a message to the coaches and I said, I really want to interview a client. Tell me who you guys have suggested. And within seconds, Stacy was like, you've got to interview Jenny. She's amazing. You will love her. And so anyway, tell me about your experience working with Coach Stacy. She's probably so jealous that I'm having this full-on conversation with you. I'll tell you that right now, for sure.
So I've had two coaches, Coach Kirsten and now Coach Stacy, and they're both amazing. And I'm sure all the rest of the coaches are just as fabulous too. But what I love most about Coach Stacy is all the extras. It's not just our interaction on check-in day. It's like I did a half marathon a couple weeks ago, and she emails me on race day and says, good luck, you got this. And it's just, she's a cheerleader and she's rooting me on, and it's really great.
I talked a little bit about this. You develop this relationship with these women that you've been working with so long through so many phases of life, be it tragedy or celebration, and you really get to know who they are, which still is just a bizarre concept to me because you're not face to face. But anyway, it's a joy to get to know you on a personal level as a coach. It's really cool. Okay, so has there been any funny or embarrassing moments that you've had during your macro journey? Maybe a time you found yourself in a weird situation, trying to hit your protein goals, or anything you can think of.
Oh gosh, all the time. So like I said, we meal prep, but it just does not work for me to do the logging the night before and then execute. I have to have that flexibility to be able to, that sounds good, I'm going to grab an apple. And if I log everything the night before, then I'm constantly reworking, and I feel like it's double work. A lot of times we'll get to the end of the night and have an odd balance to hit. The other night I had rice and some chopped up ham lunch meat that I sauteed up in a pan, and it was just enough to hit those numbers. But yeah, you find yourself eating some odd combinations.
Rice and ham. Okay. I'm sure it's a delicacy somewhere. And then you mentioned logging the night before, which is a tactic that we tell almost any newbie when they're trying to figure out macro Tetris and they don't quite understand and they don't know which foods yet or which macros. But obviously, with time, now you can look at a food and you just know what to plug. Oh, I'm just going to need a slice of ham and then a little bit of rice, and boom, I've got this combo. But I'm that way too, Jenny. I would never log the night before now because I just know how to manipulate and hit those numbers. But that is for anybody listening that can't seem to figure out how to hit your macros within range. That's the number one tip. Just log it the night before so that you figure this out and then it becomes pretty easy.
And I think another tip is having some of those single macro foods available to modify as needed. So if you need a little bit of extra fat, having some butter that you can just put on to the rest of your dinner. So you're not left with, oh, okay, what am I going to eat here? And we always have some sort of lean protein that you can add more of or adjust the portion size to make sure that, because my husband and I both have very different macros. And for his, he might need more protein and I might need less, but having the tools that are there to be able to make both work is key.
You've talked about your why a little bit with your dad. Is there anything else that really keeps you steady and doing this? Any other whys you want to share?
I think my family is always going to be my number one why. My son, I love that we're setting a good example for him. Coach Stacy always loves when he makes an appearance in my check-in photo. But we're setting an example of being active, and we'll go out for runs and he'll ride his bike. And now that he's on two wheels, I can't even keep up anymore, but it's good that he likes to be out there doing stuff with us.
So have the habits that you've picked up since Counting Macros rubbed off on your other family members or friends. So obviously your husband's doing it, your son's getting healthy habits. And side note, that's one of my favorite things about Counting Macros is now I look at my children and I see the dangers of, oh my gosh, so many kids are just having Fruit Loops for breakfast every day. We see that differently for them. We have these tools now that we're like, I know what food he needs on his plate. Anybody else in your family or around you that has maybe seen your results and thought about implementing something on their own?
Yeah. So my mom, which, is important because after losing my dad, my big focus was getting her to, prioritize her health and take care of herself because she's one of those selfless people that is always putting everybody else's needs. And so just trying to help her, having her make choices to prioritize protein and not restrict things. It's a challenge as with any parent, but I think she sees us doing it day in and day out and that it works for us.
Because you've been with Stay Fit Mom since January of 2021, you've seen the evolution of check-ins. We used to all check in on Facebook. Now they're email check-ins. Give us your feedback since you've been here through the ups, the downs, all arounds. Tell us what you think of it all.
I miss the online check-ins because you had that community where you saw the same people checking in every week. And I know it's vulnerable for people to post pictures of themselves in a bikini every week, but you just started to root for those people. And so I loved the online check-ins, but I think with the email system, I think it allows you to build a better bond with your coach because you have more discussion, I think, that's going on rather than just the quick questionnaire that you're filling out online for the Facebook post. I think the other thing I'll say is the tracker can be daunting for people when they're first starting. So just take it in sections. Maybe just focus on the macros first and then add in, okay, what are my steps or my water or fiber? Just build up to doing the whole tracker because now I'll get it done in 5 minutes. I have my system of going back in MyFitnessPal and being able to pull all those numbers pretty quickly. But I know for newbies, that can be a big challenge.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was thinking about the Facebook check-ins too. I feel like it added pressure of, oh my gosh, these people are going to be expecting me to show up today. It's my check-in day. Like, it kind of made it. And like the back to school and bikini bod challenges have that same, okay, I'm posting my pictures, so I better mean business this week. There is that aspect to it too. But you're right. I loved seeing people transform before your eyes. And so many people each week would post, my pictures are terrible. And then the comments were, are you seeing the same girl that I'm seeing? Because she looks amazing. So many times you can't see that yourself. So it does make a difference. So this is me and Jenny saying, get your transformation pictures and post them in the Ninja group so that we can cheer each other on.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things for me and with Coach Stacy. I have moved away from the scale and doing weigh-ins and just focusing on how I feel, how I look, hitting my macros. I used to be someone that would weigh in every single day, but I've realized that it messes with you mentally because the scale fluctuates and it's not necessary. You're not wearing that number on a name tag going around all day.
I remember at one point telling my kids, my new adopted kids, how much I weigh. And they were shocked that I weighed. They were like, that much weight? And I was like, what do you mean by that? Yes, I do. But you're right. And I think just macro counters in general, because we're working so hard at sustaining our muscle, we are more dense. We're more dense. And that doesn't mean that negatively impacts our health. That more positively impacts our health. We're focused on looking good naked, not a number. So yeah, I think that's great. So there's so many things that I feel like in the beginning, you have to think about so hard, but a couple of months into your journey, they just become automatic. Can you think of those things that you used to really have to try hard and would frustrate you? And now you're like, oh, this is second nature to me. Can you think of anything in your journey like that?
Veggies before was not always in the meal plan picture, but now it's okay, where can I add a veggie into this meal? Water, now I always drank a lot of water, but now I can be like, oh, okay, yeah, I had 7 glasses and just put it into the tracker. So I think those things that you're just able to think through, but it's not something that you have to be like, okay, I need to get a special water bottle and weigh everything. Just making it so that you can do it in a way that works for you.
That's awesome. People don't keep doing things that are hard. It's against our nature to want to sign up for hard things all the time. But it is hard in the beginning until you can make some of these processes automatic. And then it doesn't take as much brain power to do the things that used to take you a long time to do. And so I want people to hang on to that when it comes to macro counting, because it does take up so much brain power in the beginning. But now it takes up none of my brain power, really, because I'm on autopilot. There are tedious things to it that I have to do, but it's not taking up that much space in my brain anymore, I guess.
Yeah. And I think something you guys have always said is choose your hard. You can choose this hard, which is being disciplined and making the right choices and doing the meal prep, or you can choose the other hard, which could lead to health issues and other challenges. So it's always a choice.
Love that one. Okay. Do you have any other advice for people that might be struggling?
Yeah, I think I would just say stick with it. If you're new and it's a challenge to do the balance of the macro Tetris, just try and get close. Focus on that consistency over perfection. If you're going out to eat for work, or if you're going out to brunch with some friends, just make the best choice you can, record what that is, and then move on. And one meal doesn't define the whole day, and one day doesn't define the whole week. And it's all about what you're doing time over time. That would be my key thing for people to take away.
If you had to describe your experience with Stay Fit Mom and macro counting in one word, what would it be?
Supportive. I think just the support you get from the coaches, the community that's been created, I think that's what keeps things going, why it's been so successful.
Awesome. Any final words that you want to add, Jenny?
No, this has been so fun. I've really enjoyed getting to talk to you and share my story and what I've learned through doing this, and hope that it resonates with someone listening.
Thank you again for taking time out of your day. I know it's going to resonate with so many women, and now everyone's going to know who that example picture is on the check-ins. Again, it's just a pleasure. I wish I could do this with every single client, because I love hearing your stories. I love seeing that you're real people. Just thank you. Thank you, Jenny.
We appreciate you tuning in to the Stay Fit Mom podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media and head to stayfitmom.com for more resources and tips. You've got this. See you next time.